everyone. Well, good afternoon. This is Kat Keene. I'm the National Service Programs Director at Volunteer Florida. Thank you for joining this Partnership Development Disability Inclusion webinar. A couple housekeeping tips as we get started. We do have our staff standing by if you need any technical assistance. Anitra is at extension 108, that's 414-7400, extension 108, our office number. If you do need any help logging into the webinar. Throughout the webinar, feel free to chat in the chat box if you have any questions or comments. You'll notice that everyone can see your chat if it says send to everyone. If you have specific technical questions, you can send to Anitra, who's also on the webinar, any of your technical questions throughout. So that's one way to use the chat. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the Program Directors section of Volunteer Florida's AmeriCorps website. So for those of you that are here today, wonderful. Others will have the opportunity to experience the webinar, and it will count as one of your required disability inclusion trainings. We'll be sending you a short survey after the webinar, and completing that will basically note your completion of one of those required trainings. We're really excited to have with us today our friends and partners with the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, Kirk Hall, with the Division of Blind Services, Bertha, and Bertha, is it Bertha Height? Did I get that right?
That's right.
Oh, good, okay. And then finally, Jacqueline Ledbetter with the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. These are three important disability organizations for you as AmeriCorps programs to be knowledgeable of and connected to in our overall goal of including persons with disabilities in AmeriCorps. As many of you know, we've had a variety of inclusion initiatives over the years, including Project Impact, 6 Days, 6 Grants, Better Communities Include Everyone, and the Inclusion Council. And Volunteer Florida continues to support disability inclusion by making our AmeriCorps programs as knowledgeable and inclusive as possible. And what we've learned is the best indicator of a person with a disability serving in national service is to have a service experience. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. Bertha, Jacqueline, or Kirk, do you have anything to add as a way of introduction?
Well, this is Bertha with CBS. I'd just like to say for our clients who receive services, we would love for them to have an experience with, Volunteer Florida. I think it's a great partnership, and we're looking forward to this. I know we talked about this sometime last year, and I'm not sure if it got off the ground, but I'm looking forward to it getting off the ground and moving forward with it now.
Hi, this is Kirk Hall. As you program directors and managers well know, there are things that you can achieve through community service and volunteerism that just isn't something that can be developed through actual or regular work experiences. The boost to a person's self-esteem, especially an individual where they're used to receiving services, and then putting them in a position where they're actually providing service or providing assistance or doing those kind of activities that help other individuals, is huge in changing a person's life direction. So I'm very proud to be here and presenting with you today, and I look forward to furthering that collaboration in the future.
Hi, Kat. This is Jacqueline Ledbetter, and I am accompanied by Leanne Herman from the Agency of Persons with Disabilities, and we ditto everything the two just did or said, and we're happy to be here and look forward to partnering with all of you.
Thanks, everyone, and we'll talk about some follow-up at the end of the call for those three state agencies as well. A couple housekeeping tips. Please do mute your line, but do not put us on hold because we'll hear your music. But do mute your line so that we don't have the background noise of any office activities. And again, feel free to put your chat, your comments, your questions in the chat box. So to get started, just quick quickly as an overview, our mission is to strengthen Florida's communities through national service, fostering volunteerism, and leveraging resources. That's what we do here at Volunteer Florida. Go to the next one. And that looks like three primary things: administering AmeriCorps programs, coordinating volunteers and donations in times of disaster, increasing volunteerism through grants and trainings and recognitions. And the majority, 85% of our funding, is sub-granted out to those organizations supporting national service programs, including Teach for America, American Red Cross, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Florida Park Service, and much more. Our dollars go out to address critical needs in communities throughout our state. So we are going to talk about the Disability Community Development Plan AmeriCorps Program Directors, your DCDP. This is not new, but there are many of you that are new to AmeriCorps on the call today. So each year, Volunteer Florida requires that AmeriCorps programs develop this Disability Community Development Plan. And it has gone through a variety of versions over the years. AmeriCorps programs have been pursuing inclusion at various levels throughout our entire time as a commission. And for this year, for this contract year, the Disability Community Development Plan has been moved into outputs and outcomes. And this aligns with the AmeriCorps performance measures strategy for measuring impact. So what we're looking for is at least 3 partnerships. Those are your outputs, making sure you've secured partnerships with disability organizations, and outcomes, that at least 5 or more individuals that are persons with disabilities have a service experience. So we want those 5 or more individuals to have that service experience. Partnerships with disability organizations like Vocational Rehabilitation, Division of Blind Services, and the Agency for Persons with Disabilities are a first step in making those service experiences happen. So just to review, outputs equal partners, right? So your partners do not have to be the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, Division of Blind Services, and the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. You can have other partners as well, but these are 3 really key organizations that move towards inclusion and support persons with disabilities in a variety of ways across the state. So these are important agencies for you to know. And outcomes, that individual service experience. As a reminder, what we've learned is having a service experience, a personal hands-on interaction with an AmeriCorps program is the best way to get that person with a disability exposed, experienced with national service, and is the best predicator of a person with disability joining AmeriCorps and serving their country through national service. So the service experiences are really going to come as a result of your partnership that you as an AmeriCorps program form with your disability partner. And the overall outreach activity should result in those individuals with disabilities having that service experience that looks like a shadowing experience. So that may be a person with a disability spending a day shadowing an AmeriCorps member or a program, what they do, what it's like to tutor, what it's like to remove exotic invasives from the park system, etc., whatever that goal is of your AmeriCorps program. Volunteering, that could look like an episodic, one-time volunteer experience or an ongoing volunteer. And internships, a longer, more structured exposure to national service. So those are the 3 kind of guidance examples for what the service experience could look like. And as AmeriCorps program directors, you have much more detail that was provided to you in your program startup manual and also on our website. So there's kind of the back end of this and a lot of the deep definitions that have been provided to you previously. So that's what we're talking about today, those outputs of partnership and those outcomes of having persons with disabilities experience your AmeriCorps program. Okay, let's go next slide. So let me pause there before introducing Kirk. Does anyone have any questions about the information that I shared? Okay, we're going to get the chat open so we can see if there's any questions in there. And we are not seeing any questions in there. Okay. So I'm going to move forward. What we'll do is we'll pause after each presenter's section so you do have a chance to ask your questions there. And you can ask them on the phone or in the chat. All right. Well, I'd like to introduce a champion of inclusion who Volunteer Florida has had the pleasure and honor to work with for many years, Kirk Hall with the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind, Kat, especially given your extensive background. Vocational rehabilitation, of course, we're all about employment, but one of those key things to preparing individuals with disabilities for employment is some of that community experience. But finding out a little bit about the services we provide and how we can support your mission is really what we hear about today. So it's really about the ways that we can assist you with those things that you're doing in your efforts to provide that inclusive environment. And will you be advancing the slides? Hello?
Hey, Kirk, 1 second. Working
okay.
on that.
All right.
There we go.
Excellent. So one of the things that a lot of people have misconceptions as far as what VR is or what vocational rehabilitation is that it's an entitlement program. It's not an entitlement program, it's an eligibility program, meaning that if you're eligible for services, the services that you get are going to be geared towards a specific employment goal and are going to be very different than what the next person who's eligible for services gets. If you're entitled to services, say you receive Medicaid, for instance, you would be eligible or able to receive the same exact thing as the next person receiving Medicaid. So an eligibility program, not an entitlement program. A lot of people, because we do assist with training, think that we're a scholarship program. We're not. Again, the services that we provide are to help those individuals with disabilities have the needed services in order to become employed. We're not a training facility. We actually don't provide the training, the employment training that most people go through. We go through all of the public and private sources that you're familiar with, everything from on-the-job training, career and technical schools, universities, colleges, all of those institutions. And we're not a job bank. We don't get a listing of jobs. You know, that's Workforce's and now called WorkSource's domain. So, and excuse me, I do have to apologize to y'all. Y'all may get some of these little clearing of the throats. It's allergy season. You may be aware Florida has this. And again, VR is not a single event. It's really about those services that people need in order to become employed. So whatever those services entail, whether it's a short amount of time or a long amount of time, we're going to be there providing those services to get people into that employment situation. Next. Next slide.
Working on that, Kirk.
Okay. I know Kat and Volunteer at Florida, I think, are used to me being a little long-winded, so they've built that into the presentation. I'll try it for a little more brevity, though. VR is a process of steps. Step one, of course, is the application for VR services. That's where they're going to meet with the counselor. They're going to go through their process. They're going to find out about the program, but the counselor is also going to find out information about that person, everything that they need to know to get the process moving forward. Then they're going to evaluate them for their eligibility. We have 60 days to determine eligibility. So if you have somebody you think might be able to benefit from agency services and you're thinking that it's something that they need or it's a service that they need immediately, VR is probably not that program because we do have to go through the process of determining their eligibility for the program. Of course, that requires that they have a condition, and we use medical, psychological, other records to determine whether or not they do have a condition that interferes with their ability to obtain employment. Once that determination is made, we go on to step 3. Which is the rehabilitation planning process. So if a person's eligible, we're going to develop a plan of services around helping them to become employed. They're going to identify a vocational goal, a job goal, and what services, including payers for those services and timeframes for those services, that they need to achieve that goal. And the goal is going to be something that's based on that individual's strengths, their abilities and their interests. And I say strengths and abilities before interests because there are many times where you may have an interest in something, but you may not be particularly good with it. So we're really focusing in on those areas where the person does well and then what it is that they can do vocationally or job-wise that is also then of interest to them. So we find that people do much better in life if they're working in a job or in a position where they're actually really strong. And so that's what we try and encourage. A lot of times people will pursue an interest in an area where they're weak, which winds up being very frustrating. So we try and make sure that they're making that connection between where they have a strength, where they have ability, and then what kind of career paths those entail, and then finding out what interests them among those career paths. Getting the plan in place, we're moving on to the services. Once those services are provided, and they can include things from mental restoration, physical restoration if they need some type of medical procedure or counseling through a therapist, assistive technology and devices. Sometimes they need equipment in order to be able to work or prepare for work, which is a large part of what we do with the actual training piece. I've already mentioned things like on-the-job training, career and technical training, associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, but also supported employment. So you may have an individual who is going to need ongoing supports in order to be able to maintain employment. And those situations require some additional assistance and supports that VR provides up front, and then our partners or other natural supports provide them long term. So a person may have a support provider long term that will assist them to maintain the job once those job training efforts have been completed, or they may have an employer support or family supports to help them accomplish that. Placement, of course, is self-explanatory. Once they have that job, we follow along for 90 days or 150 days, depending on whether it's a regular closure. And I say closure, it means they're successfully employed and then they're stable for 90 days, not that they're just on the job 90 days. Or 150 days for supported employment. So when do we get involved? I'm involved with transitions, so all of this really that I'm talking about is about youth, but we do also work with adults. We don't really have an upper age range. I think the oldest person that I ever worked with as a counselor was 94 at the time, and you know, they were able to become employed and have their case closed successfully, FYI. But for transition for our youth, we want to see those individuals coming to our agency at least 2 years before they're exiting school, because it takes time to really be able to develop the rapport with the student, but also really to help them explore those things they need to in order to really benefit from that transition from high school. You may all recall, you know, life after high school is quite different from life while you were in high school. I know many of you are probably thinking, well, that was just yesterday. For me as well. They need to be able to participate in vocational activities and planning. We like to see them coming to us if they're at risk for dropping out. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to be able to assist them, but we definitely want to make sure that they're aware of the community resources available. We do emphasize the difference between what options are going to be available long-term for them staying in school versus if they were to leave school. But if they're dead set on getting out of the school system, then we want to make sure that they have access to resources and support to make that transition to employment. If a student's beginning community-based work experiences, if they're getting involved in the world of work, we want to be able to provide some guidance and counseling. One of the things that we see happen all the time is that people really don't get good guidance and counseling about what jobs are out there, what career paths might be open or available to them. Too many times we see people have an idea of what they want to do, and they'll pursue that, not even being aware of the multitude of different opportunities that are just out there waiting to be tapped that would have potentially made them very happy or given them a different direction in life. So it's really about helping to inform them about what their options are so that they can make a good decision about what path they want to take. Even if the job goal that they have in mind for themselves is something that they could obtain, we want to make sure that they have all the information they need to make that good decision. You can go to rehabworks.org for our brochures and additional information about the School to Work program. This tells a little bit about what we are. Essentially, we're helping those students while they're in those last few years of high school prepare for that transition into either the world of work or training or education to prepare for work. The activities that we help with are always going to emphasize developing not just the work skills, because we see a lot of people have the work skills, but then they lose the job that they get because they don't have the social skills. They say the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time. You know, they may say something to their coworker, to their boss, and sometimes that's frowned upon, or to, worst of all, the customer of whatever business they may be working with. So it's those soft skills or those social skills that usually lead to people getting terminated from that first experience. Or, and the development of a network of supports needed. Half of the jobs that are obtained out there in the world of work are done through networking, through that word of mouth. So we're really about helping them to connect to parts of the community that will then become part of their network to help them find a job, but then also to keep that job once they have it. Next slide. So what do we provide? Here's just a listing of some services. I'm not going to read those off to you. There's a lot that VR does. It's really about what's needed for the person to obtain employment. But this is a sampling for you. If I were to try and list every service that a vocational rehabilitation agency provides, it would be a book, and you definitely wouldn't want to try and dive into. Next slide. So who receives those transition services? First of all, we don't serve every person with a disability. Students have to require the services because of that condition or that disability in order to receive services. If they're receiving supplemental security income or Social Security disability insurance based on their disability, then we expect that they're going to be eligible for services. We presume their eligibility. Most clients, customers who are eligible for services fall into our priority categories 1 or 2. Those are priority category 1 is our individuals with the most significant disabilities. Priority category 2 is individuals with significant disabilities. And we have also a priority category 3, which is your all other individuals with disabilities. So when we're talking about youth, the majority of the time, 99%, and anytime you hear the 99% figure thrown out there, always be suspect, but literally it's 99% fall into category 1 and 2 in the vocational rehabilitation system. Training, placement, guidance, and counseling are the services that are most often associated with transition. Guidance and counseling specifically, I don't know how many of you got guidance and counseling when you were making that transition into the world of work. For me, I actually got to meet my guidance counselor one time. They invited me to the office, which was very nerve-wracking for me, and then asked me if I had any plans after high school, which I told them the military, and they said, thank you, checked off on a list, and sent me back to my class. So we want to make sure that people are getting a little bit more information than that when they're making those life decisions. Training, obviously, for youth is very important. Employers, in particular, they expect people to come in with the skills and expect them to be able to do the job already. So you have that expectation that people have that experience even when they're young and they haven't had an opportunity to develop those work skills or practice the social skills they need to be successful. Next slide. Community service. Volunteering community service programs. They're going to link members to specific jobs. You all are very familiar with what your programs do, but literally with the majority of your programs, you can say what our members are doing are relatable to actual jobs out in the community. So for us, it's a very good fit in that anything that they're doing within one of the programs is actually giving them work experiences that they wouldn't get simply from volunteering, say at your local library, where they might go in and be given, busy work, something that just needs to be done, but not necessarily it would encompass an actual job within the community. It allows our customers to explore those jobs, to find out where there are good fits for them. Sometimes, it's not just about the job, it's also about the environment. You can have a job, same job, two different places, and one place it's great and one place it's awful, and a lot of it has to do with the environment of that job. Also gives them hands-on training and practice, which if you have somebody with a really significant disability, sometimes it takes them a little bit longer to acquire the work skill, so it gives them a chance to practice those activities so that they are able then to take that information or that skills and then transfer them into actual work opportunities. On our section, we listed as a community-based work experience on our plan of services when they're involved in activities through a volunteer program. So if they're actually, rather than just going in and volunteering, if they're actually engaged by one of your programs, we would list that as our community-based work experience and then note the activity that you're doing on our plan of service in addition to working with you on your, and correct me, your DCDP or whatever it might, whatever the initials actually are. Next slide.
Good job, Kirk. That's it.
Thank you. My memory is not what it once was. So how does the program that you're running actually benefit from the collaboration? One of the good things is that you have individuals through our agency. They're all individuals who are going to be people or persons with disabilities. If you have a big program coming up and you need X number of bodies, oftentimes if you have that relationship developed, you can get individuals referred over for that on a regular basis, because we're always looking for opportunities to help improve our individual situation, things that they can add or put on their resume. But that in turn is going to be something to help you out with mobilizing those volunteers and making the community aware of what it is you're doing within that make the community aware of what's happening in the community. I know that sounds odd, but oftentimes we look at the paper and say, oh, that parade was yesterday. So we don't want a situation like that where the good work that's being done isn't being acknowledged or recognized just because of a lack of awareness. Volunteers can establish that pool of potential members. I know oftentimes when you get to see somebody volunteering or participating in any of those activities Kat described earlier, it then says, oh, that person would be a great member for us. And so you're really developing that membership pool. Outreach, obviously, Kat talked to you about that requirement for the plan and that this will help to meet that. But the agency also, if you have concerns or you have situations where people need support while they're engaged in that service activity, then we can often help with those things. It could be assistive technology. It could be something in the case of what to do in the way of accommodations. Those are the kinds of things that we have a lot of information on, a lot of awareness of, things that we can help you to point in the right direction. I know many programs take on these tasks and kind of work through them themselves, but my motto is if there's somebody else who can help to do that, you know, always tap that resource wherever it might be. And of course then that goes right into what we can do as far as presentations and outreach of our own to provide any type of disability training or assistance with respect to those education efforts you may have, and we're happy to do that. So if you have any questions, one of the things that I provided to CAP besides our transition brochure was our area supervisor contact list. The area supervisors are actually our transition liaisons for each of the local areas. And if you don't have an existing relationship right now with your local VR office, that area supervisor is a great first point of contact. Let them know what your intentions are, how you want to collaborate, what you're looking or hoping to accomplish, and they can get you connected to the right supervisors to do that. Not everybody has a need for youth. Maybe you're looking for more of an adult population. So those area supervisors can get you directed to the right individuals there. If you do have questions or you find yourself running into any roadblocks and having difficulty making the connection, you can always feel free to contact me as well, and I'll help you to make that local connection with the area supervisor or the unit supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirk, so much. Any questions for Kirk before we move on to our next presenter? All right, well, we will have some follow-up, as Kirk said, after the webinar to send you these resources on how to contact your local VR or other local representative. So next, I'd like to invite Jacqueline Ledbetter from the Agency for Persons with Disabilities to share a bit about her agency. Jacqueline.
Thanks, Kat. I'd like to start by just saying that, you know, how much I know our AmeriCorps programs work to recruit and enrich the lives of the members that serve, especially professionally, with the professional skills that are taught to the members, and you know, just your basic career training that's involved with each annual member's term. And being a program director at one time, I got to see that impact firsthand on our clients, and it was just amazing to me how much not only did they enrich their own, but our office's life. And you know, they've ended up all going on to getting jobs. I mean, not all, but the members that we had here in Tallahassee went on to get jobs, and it was just a wonderful experience all around. So. With that, I just want to say we're very pleased to be here, and we can go ahead and get started. All right, well, this is APD's mission. The agency supports persons with developmental disabilities in living, learning, and working in their communities. And at the top right there, that's our director, Barbara Palmer. She's a wonderful person. She's done so much for the agency since she began as our director. All right, and who do we serve? Well, currently APD serves persons diagnosed with autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, intellectual disability, Prader-Willi, and spina bifida. All right, and so these are our regional or our statewide offices. APD has 6 regionalized offices and has organized within each region an employment team who is very actively involved in seeking partnerships in the community. These regions work with our clients directly. Here at the state office, we more or less are an administrative arm. So if the programs are looking for partners, these are the people you're contacting, these regional numbers. They know who is looking for work or who is looking for an opportunity, and they'd be more than willing to work with the programs on trying to refer their people over to the AmeriCorps programs in the state. So, like I said, we have an employment team. We also have community resource individuals who are staff who will help and aid in working with our clients and working with the programs to get those opportunities filled. We do have HIPAA, laws that require that we don't divulge our clients' names to programs, but that doesn't prevent us from having to refer our clients over to your programs, or vice versa with potential opportunities that might be coming up in the future. And just so you have an idea of what our priorities here are at the Agency for Persons with Disabilities, at the top, highlighted in green, 1 of 5 is employment. We have our wait list, our quality services, thriving providers and businesses, and physical accountability. Now, we are an agency that basically serves as on the waiver for Medicaid services around the state, but we also work directly with providers and clients to help aid them in setting up services and making sure all of that works in sync. All right, so why is employment such a big priority? And, it's the governor's priority as well. We had recently, in October 2013, Executive Order, 13-284. Governor Scott signed the Executive Order which created an interagency cooperative agreement among state agencies and disability service organizations to ensure the continuation of long-term commitment to improving employment outcomes for persons with disabilities. This was then preceded by another executive order which created the Governor's Commission on Jobs for Floridians with Disabilities. And just the quality of life involved. We know the outcome of someone who can take, who has not only the ability to be self-sufficient, but also develop relationships and be a part of the community. And also to decrease the need of dependency on government waivers and other types of services. So being able to have insurance and be able to be self-sufficient is basically the main driver. All right, and with that, I'm going to pass things over to Leanne. She works in our employment division, and she is a big employment guru. She's wonderful, and she knows her stuff.
Well, thank you, Jacqueline. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I really, really appreciate the opportunity to talk to all the new grantees out there. As Jacqueline said, we participated here at APD in AmeriCorps ourselves as a grantee, and we had a wonderful experience with it. There are challenges, but it's a fabulous pathway. I think of it as a pathway to competitive employment for people with disabilities that may or may not have had that opportunity before. And it is overwhelming to be a part of that and to see that progress develop right before your eyes with people who haven't been able to try working in the past. And just to comment a little bit more on why employment is such a priority for us, if you're not as familiar with disability services per se statewide, there are other services for what we call day programs in the state of Florida called adult day training for one. And those programs allow people to spend their day in facilities usually, separate and apart from going to work in the community. So competitive employment is a way to get people into their communities in real paying jobs with minimum wage or higher, working with people without disabilities surrounding them and being a part of their own world. And that allows people to earn a living choose where they live, choose who they live with, if anyone, you know, choose the job they want to do, and support themselves. So those are critical reasons why. And the cost-benefit issue with tax money, too, is that what we do here at APD is we provide supported employment services so that people can have support on the job in the community. So the costs of providing those kinds of supports usually are much less expensive than the cost of a full-time facility day program. So the tax cost-based analysis, competitive employment is going to cost taxpayers less alone just for the services. Plus the benefits to the person, you know, they're going to become a taxpayer in their own right. So it's a fabulous program, and we're thrilled that it's been able to take off as well as it has here in Florida. There's a lot of studies on the analysis between competitive employment versus other types of programs, so there's a lot to be learned about that, but we certainly are doing everything we can to increase the number of people that have an opportunity to work in their communities. Let's see. So there's incredibly good reasons to be very much involved in helping people with disabilities become fully employed. What are the barriers?
To go back.
You've already gone back, yeah. People considering employment, there's barriers such as fear of losing Medicaid. And if you're not familiar with people with disabilities that are receiving Medicaid waiver services, it's hard to understand this, but there are services that some people with disabilities really have to have, such as personal care assistance, things of that nature, that if they lose Medicaid eligibility, they may lose waiver services, and then they're not able to continue working without these services. So when people earn an income, it impacts or can impact their eligibility for these benefits. So it's really important for folks to realize that going in. And what do you do as a program? What does that mean for you guys, the people who are hiring folks and participating as grantees? Well, this is kind of what it is in a nutshell. There's two major programs in Social Security. One is called Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. And fortunately, there's three major programs of AmeriCorps, and SSI does not count the stipends that are paid to AmeriCorps members as income for any of the three AmeriCorps programs. So that's good news. You still have to make sure folks understand that they report the stipends to Social Security, but it's not going to impact their benefits under SSI. Now, there is a catch with the other program called SSDI, which is Social Security Disability Insurance. And people on that program, if they're not involved in AmeriCorps Vista, which is one of the three types of AmeriCorps programs, and I don't know who on the phone is in Vista and who's not, but if the program is not AmeriCorps Vista, V-I-S-T-A, their SSDI will in fact count their stipend as income. So that's something that people need to be aware of. And we have documentation we can send to everybody by email that's a general overview of this. And what we recommend you do, because you don't want to obviously ask people if they are receiving benefits, that would be something would be a disclosure issue potentially. So what we would advise is just simply that when you hire or bring in members for AmeriCorps, you provide everybody with the documentation that tells them about the SSA, the Social Security Administration programs, and if they're on governmental benefits, what they may need to know.
Hi, Leanne.
Yes.
This is Kat with Volunteer Florida. I think this is such an important topic, and it's a topic we regularly give guidance on, and those individuals that are new to AmeriCorps regularly have these questions, and I'd like to see maybe if we could talk offline a bit more, maybe some additional information we could provide in the future.
Sure. I was just going to touch on those two issues about it, accounting for for SSDI if they're not on VISTA. And then,
yes, and these folks on the phone today are all with AmeriCorps state programs. They're not with VISTA, although some have VISTA members that do serve with their organization. So primarily the audience is not AmeriCorps VISTA.
Yeah, so DI, so anybody who's receiving DI benefits, that income would be counted with regard to their DI benefits. So that's real important for them to understand that. And we'd recommend that those folks be given the information about their CWICs in their areas, and we have that information too, and that's just basically the addresses and phone numbers for their benefits counseling information. Because we don't want folks to run into some issues with not reporting and that kind of thing. So
you can go on to the next slide.
Next slide, yeah. And this is about the benefits counseling. The WIPA project, there are folks that they employ called CWICs, Community Work Incentive Coordinators, and they provide free benefits counseling to anybody receiving Social Security benefits who are either working or want to work. So that's who we refer people to for full benefits counseling, and they can make sure that they know the details about what they need to report and how they need to report and whether they're available for or applicable for work incentives as well. And it's really important for anybody with a disability who is receiving governmental benefits to know as much as possible about this. So especially if they go on to then become competitively employed after AmeriCorps. This is critical information for them. So we encourage you to do that. And I think we have a list, next slide, of all of the CWICs. There you go. So this is what we would ask all of the program grantees to have at their disposal and provide. The counties there are listed next to the actual WIPA office. So those WIPAs serve those counties. And so wherever you're located, that's the location for your CWIC office to contact for free benefits counseling. So that's what you would tell your members who to contact if they receive governmental benefits, particularly Social Security benefits.
Leanne, this is JR.
Hi, JR.
Hi. You know, when you and Kat were talking about the notification process, I was thinking about higher education and the syllabi the faculty put out for students with disabilities needing accommodations and stuff. And might that concept of notification and inclusion, but not separation or singling out, be a methodology they might copy for the literature with regards to this program?
Okay. I don't know. JR, does everybody know J.R. Harding? That's J.R. Harding who works for APD.
Oh, that's okay. It's better they don't know me.
JR, welcome to our webinar. I'm so glad that you've joined us, and it sounds like we might have some opportunity for some more resources and education to connect our groups. So thanks for being with us today, and thank you for that suggestion.
And I think that's all the slides we had as far as the APD, unless JR wanted to add anything else.
Well, Leanne and Jacqueline and JR, thank you so much. I think we'll have a variety of follow-up. And I think just sharing the WIPA offices and those locations is so significant. It is one of the barriers sometimes for persons with disabilities not applying is because it's unclear about how their benefits will be impacted. And those local organizations may or may not have the expertise on how to advise them, and so then rely on us. But these are some really great local resources, so thank you so much for that. Does anyone on the phone call have any questions for the Agency for Persons with Disabilities? Okay, I know y'all are going to email me your questions after the webinar, but that's okay too. All right, well, I'd like to introduce Bertha Heitz from Division of Blind Services. And Bertha's newer to the AmeriCorps Disability Partnerships, although some of you may have worked with Wayne Jennings previously. Bertha, thank you so much for joining us today, and we have your slides up.
Okay, well, I have to say this is going to be a hard act to follow because we don't have half as many slides as the other agencies, but I am going to, give you all of the pertinent information that you will need. As on this first slide, you see that DBS's mission is to ensure that blind and visually impaired Floridians have the tools, support, and opportunity to achieve success. One of the things that I would like to reiterate is DBS, as it says here, we only work with blind and visually impaired Floridians and not all individuals who may have a disability. Very similar to VR, although they help individuals who have lots of disabilities, we only have one small pool of those individuals that we actually serve. We have 10 district offices. The Tallahassee office is at 1320 Executive Center Drive. We serve 11 counties in our district, and we have 9 other offices throughout the state of Florida. Well, it says, 10 offices, 10 districts, 15 offices. We have some satellite offices who actually are managed by a district administrator who may be in another district office, but we have about 5 satellite offices as well. And I know the information on this slide is very small, but our programs and services include blind babies and children's services, vocational rehab for visually impaired individuals, business enterprise program, rehabilitation center for the blind and visually impaired, independent living services, and Braille and Talking Books library services. The majority of our clients come for VR services. Like vocational rehab, we do have a transition program, but the bulk of our clients come for VR, which is vocational rehabilitation, as it is related to employment. The individual must have a bilateral visual impediment that is substantial to them seeking employment. So that is a very distinctive factor for blind services.
Well, goodness, that puts it back to me.
That was very, very short in a nutshell. I actually didn't put these slides together, but I can certainly, give you a little more information about our services. We have, for our transition program, young people come in as early as age 13, as long as they're 13 and 8 months. Once they have graduated, they can then move over to our regular VR program. But in terms of service provision, they have to be eligible just like an individual who would come to us for regular VR services. So like Kirk said, we are not an entitlement program. We are an eligibility-based program, and again, the person has to have a bilateral visual impediment that is substantial impairment to them seeking employment. We, serve clients across the state of Florida, as I mentioned before. We have a supervisor and a DA basically in all of our offices. Some of the services that we actually provide would be educational training, vocational training, counseling and guidance, maintenance, transportation, physical and mental restoration, all of those services that would need to be included on the individualized plan of employment to help the person move towards competitive employment, which is basically the goal for our services as well. We do have services for blind babies. However, those are contracted through Lighthouse of the Big Bend and for our children's program as well. The older blind adult program, those services are contracted with Lighthouse of the Big Bend as well. So that's basically it in a nutshell. And
thank you.
If other information is required, I can certainly make sure that everyone gets the information on who to contact in the other district offices. As I mentioned, there's a supervisor and a district administrator, and we serve all blind and visually impaired individuals across the state of Florida as long as they are seeking employment for the VR program.
Thank you so much, Bertha. Does anyone have any questions for Bertha regarding the Division of Blind Services? Well, I think for those of you that are on the call from AmeriCorps, you can see what a rich network there is of support services that help persons with disabilities gain employment across Florida. We've introduced you to 3 agencies today. Some of you may be very familiar with these agencies, and some of you may be new to it. But the most important takeaway, I think, is for you to understand how to connect with these agencies at the local level. So much of that information is in this webinar, which is being recorded and will be posted on our website. We can also send you that follow-up information as well. Because, as you know, much of the support and the partnership happens at the local level between you and that local VR, DBS, or APD person. And another takeaway I want for you AmeriCorps program directors is to know that there are a lot of resources out there for you to assist persons with disabilities as they apply, are recruited into AmeriCorps. And so there's a lot of information out there that you can become educated on and as well as educate your applicants on. We want to create that network for you. And for DBS, VR, and APD, there are ways that Volunteer Florida can educate or inform your local counselors or your employees in your organizations about AmeriCorps as an option for persons with disabilities as they enter on board into the workforce. I'd be happy to do that and would love to do that this year. So a couple steps for what's next for us as an AmeriCorps group is what's next is making sure that you've established those local contacts with this APD Division of Blind Services and Vocational Rehabilitation. And we provided that for you. If you need additional help to do so, just let me know. And also to introduce your AmeriCorps program to persons with disabilities through those relationships at that local level. And then finally, to facilitate that service experience. We know that on average about 11% of AmeriCorps members in Florida's AmeriCorps state programs are persons with disabilities. We do that through a survey process every year. That's good. We'd like it to be more. And this is part of increasing that opportunity. So those are some next steps for our team, our AmeriCorps program directors. And again, this webinar will be available on our website. You'll be completing a short survey that will basically determine that you've completed the webinar. So let me see if there's any final questions from our AmeriCorps program directors on the call today. Okay. Well,
hey, Kat, yeah. Before you go, this is JR again.
Yeah, JR, go ahead.
On May 10th at Fanny Springs, APD is sponsoring a disability expo, fun out there like a mini sports ability. And any of your AmeriCorps partners in that Fanny Springs arena certainly would be welcome to come, and it might be a great way to introduce some of your staff and partners to the disabled community and vice versa.
That's a great idea, JR. Where is Fanning Springs? What area of the state is that?
That's Levy County, about an hour south of Tallahassee, out Highway 20, heading towards Tampa. And it's at one of the state parks, so it's the tri-county area of Levy, Gilchrist, and I'm sorry, I'm losing the last county. But
yeah, I know what you mean.
Right, but I can send you the little flyer, and it's on the APD website, okay? And it's open to the public, and it's an all-day event on Saturday with water sports and fun and educational sessions and even some great giveaways.
That sounds great. So for those of you in that area, great opportunity. And JR, we will be happy to send that out as a follow-up to this webinar. Thank you for that suggestion. Well, thank you, VR and DBS and APD, for your leadership and your time on this call today. Do either of you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Hi, this is Kirk Hall. I just want to mention to the program directors that are attending today and those who may be listening in the future what important work you're doing. I know for a fact that youth that participate in programs early on come back and do community service and volunteer later in life. And you don't go back to something unless you're getting a real reward from it. So the work that you're doing is very important, and it is making an impact on many people's lives. So I just wanted to part with that, and thank you again for this opportunity to be able to help develop those partnerships locally.
Thank you, Kirk. Any other closing comments from our presenters?
Well, this is Bertha from DBS. I'd just like to say that we are looking forward to partnering and possibly having some of, our clients do a service project with your organization or vice versa. But, we're really looking forward to moving forward with this and creating a really strong partnership where clients feel vested and know that there's another opportunity for them.
Thank you, Bertha. Great idea. So for those of you on the call, service projects that are happening, let's get that information to the Division of Blind Services and our other partners. Great. Thank you, Bertha.
Kat, this is Jacqueline Ledbetter with APD. We just, again, thank you for having us, and we would be willing to do anything we can to partner with the AmeriCorps programs around the state and get you guys fitted with some people who are ready to work.
Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone for being on the call. We will be following up with some attachments and survey in the near future. Have a great week.
Thank you.